Well, Keith, you clearly looked at the weather today. I did not. So with Under Moonlight, before we get into that, let's kind of talk more about you as a musician. Like, what should people know about Keith Newsham, the musician, singer-songwriter, but what else is there to you beyond that?
Yeah, it's a good question, man, and sorry I dragged you out here in the middle of nowhere. Believe it or not, we are in Chicago. And I know it's cold as hell, so thank you for coming out. But yeah, I mean, like, beyond music, I guess for me, like, the only thing I ever wanted to do with my life was create beautiful things that people could enjoy. Like, I just wanted to create, whether it was songs or film or poetry or whatever, I just wanted to create, like, valuable things that were useful to people. And that's, like, the only thing I ever still want to do. Like, I view myself as a musician and as a songwriter, but really, as I think about, like, the totality of my life and hopefully the future of my life, I guess I hope that I can just create a lot of things of value, and just, like, in a variety of artistic forms. So it's like, right now I'm very focused on music and I want to keep building the sort of world of Under Moonlight, but in the end, I think I see myself more as, like, almost in the, like, experiences kind of business more than, like, the music business, if that makes any sense at all. It's just, I don't view it as, like, only music. It's more just, like, I want to create, again, a lot of things that people can enjoy of a variety of kinds.
Is there a line between entertainment and, like, trying to, like, there's, like, a message you're trying to deliver with the music or anything? Is it a little of both? Like, where does it fall in that line for you?
Yeah. I guess when I started Under Moonlight, I was just in, like, a place of a lot of anxiety and a lot of pain, and I also just was not very happy with my life. And so in many ways, like, I tried to create the world of Under Moonlight as sort of like this alternate universe, this sort of like escapism. And so I guess with what I'm trying to do, it's like I hope that I can create this sort of universe of Under Moonlight, and, like, there's the songs, but then beyond that, there's a lot of ideas that I'm trying to build out now where I'm hoping I can create this sort of escape and this sort of a little oasis for people, because I realize that our world is incredibly, like, dark, and, you know, a lot of people have a lot of anxiety about a lot of things right now, myself included. So I guess I'm just trying to, the message for me is, like, I just want to create this sort of safe space for people where they feel like they can just be themselves and they can just reconnect with, like, joy and wonder and magic and serenity. And again, I guess it's just, the word I'm thinking of is just sort of like oasis, the thing that comes to mind.
Got it. Would Under Moonlight, did that come about because you've been in bands and other projects before? Like, did that evolve out of that, like you said, kind of that bad time you were going through? Like, is that where it clicked, where, like, Under Moonlight was kind of became more clear in your head, like, yeah, this is something I should pursue?
Yeah, I mean, yes, in short. I mean, this band came about really for two reasons, I think. The first was that I was just, again, like, in a really rough place in my life. The time was kind of in my late 20s, and I wasn't happy at all with my life. Like, I just had felt like in so many ways, like, I didn't know if I wanted to do music, period, anymore. Like, I wanted to kind of quit art, period, because I just felt like the world was not really supportive of it. And so I guess, to kind of get back to your question, I wanted to kind of chase a feeling, and the feeling was basically, like, when I listen to my favorite artists, like my favorite bands of all time, I just have this, like, feeling of, like, immense joy, like, just infinite joy, and I'm sure you do as well. Mm-hmm. And I'm also just, like, so grateful to be alive in that moment to hear that song. So my goal with Under Moonlight was basically, like, I want to create songs that give me the feeling that I have when I listen to my favorite artists. Okay. And so I'm very proud of the other things that I've done in my life, but I honestly can't say that I ever reached that feeling. But with this project, I basically kind of promised myself, I was like, you need to just keep working on these songs and keep working and working and working until you do reach that point. And I did. Like, I'm very proud of what I was able to achieve with it, and I do love these songs like I love my favorite artists, and so I'm feeling good about it, man. I'm hoping now, like, with the world changing, hopefully I can get out there and share them with people, because I'm very proud of what I created.
Cool. Kind of going on that note, with Under Moonlight, like, creatively speaking, what itch does that kind of scratch for you that maybe past bands you've been in haven't?
Yeah, I think it's just this chance to, I talked about it a little bit earlier, but it's like this chance to kind of create the world of Under Moonlight. Mm-hmm. You know, this is the first project where I'll have kind of full creative control, where there's the songs, and I love them very much, but there's also kind of the full live experience that I'm thinking about for these shows, and hopefully shows come back soon this year or whenever they do. But I guess the itch is really just that I can build this kind of a universe around the music that's not just like the songs. So I'm thinking a lot about potentially like some short films related to the band, and possibly some like kind of short stories and poems and things that are all kind of related to this project, because as a lot of us did in this pandemic, I had a lot of time to think about, like, okay, what is the universe of these songs? Like, what world does this exist in, and how do I want people to feel whenever they're interacting with Under Moonlight? And so I have a lot of ideas, and I'm kind of working on them now, and there'll be more to come on that. But in short, it's just like, I'm so grateful that I can just create songs and then everything around the songs. And I haven't been able to do that before. It's definitely a new thing.
So Under Moonlight has the one EP to its name right now.
Mm-hmm.
But you have 2 new tracks coming out fairly soon.
Mm-hmm.
Those 2 new tracks, and correct me because I keep, like, with the names in my head, it's like, did I flip it wrong?
It's Impossibly Distant and Incredibly Close.
Correct.
I know. It's
those 2 tracks, are they, people who have heard the EP, should they think these tracks are going to be like a faithful continuation of what that first EP kind of laid out, or is it kind of an evolution of sorts, or is it wildly different, or somewhere in the middle? How would you kind of describe the new output?
Yeah, it's a good question, man. I think it's relatively distinct. You know, the first record came out like in fall 2019, and then right after that, you know, it was such a weird thing. I came out with that record. I was so excited to come out with that record. Right after that, I ended a 4-year relationship, and that alone was horrible, and I was just in a terrible mental place. But then, as we all learned shortly thereafter, the world ended. And so, you know, winter of 2020, I'm essentially alone in my apartment 24/7. Just getting out of a 4-year relationship, and I'm alone like all day in a studio apartment. So I'm in a really terrible
just
mental
you
space.
And your thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, it's rough. I mean, and I know we all struggled, and I'm not trying to say like woe is me, because frankly, you know, there's plenty of people that had a far worse year than me. But that was the headspace I found myself in, and so it was like, it was natural that these songs were going to sound different and darker and more intimate, and so I think they do. They're kind of both sort of acoustic singer-songwriter-ish songs, and you know, by the time this thing comes out, people will probably be able to hear them. So, but I think it still sounds like the world of Under Moonlight, but I think you can also just tell I was in a lot of pain, like at that point in my life, and I honestly, I mean, I do think it's the universe of Under Moonlight, but it's definitely a little bit of a darker chapter, and I don't know if the songs, they might just be one-offs. They may just be reflective of that time in my life, and I'm not sure if it will be a continuation beyond this point of like that kind of sound. It might just kind of be of the moment.
Okay, so the 2 new tracks, going back to those, Impossibly Distant, Incredibly Close, listening to them, since I was lucky enough to have a sneak peek, they seem to be kind of constructed to kind of be like mirrors of each other, kind of a light and a dark.
Yeah.
Was that kind of the intent, or did I miss the mark there completely?
No, very much so. You know, when I was in quarantine, this sort of thought just came, was a kind of, I had a recurring thought, is basically what I'm trying to say. And it was just this phrase of impossibly distant, incredibly close. And I think like what it means to me is, like at the time, because I was in quarantine like everyone, I did feel a million miles away from everyone. I just felt ridiculously distant from everything. And also I felt distant from my past relationship. It was this weird thing where I felt distance from humanity and then also from what I had just left. Mm-hmm. So that was that one half. And then incredibly close to me was, even though everything felt so distant, the pain and anxiety had never felt more close. It was like the struggles that I were facing just had never felt like more present and like literally in front of my face. And so also at the same time, I had these two songs that just, for whatever reason, I felt like their energies seemed to really line up with this like concept that like just kept kind of popping into my mind. So it was kind of like weirdly serendipitous of like, all right, I've got these songs and I've got these titles, and it just all kind of lined up really nicely. And so yeah, I'm very proud of them. And to your point, I think there is very much a yin and a yang relationship. And I also think, I'm hoping at least, that, you know, this idea of impossibly distant, incredibly close, I do think, I'm hoping people can connect with it a little bit, because I think a lot of us have felt incredible amounts of distance and hopefully a little bit of closeness as well over the last 12 months. So it was kind of a weird, again, like a serendipitous moment where I was like, this seems to speak to me, and I'm hoping it speaks to other people.
The release of them, is this intended to be kind of like, these tracks are kind of like a one-off release, or are they a part of something larger like an EP or a full album? Like what is on the horizon there?
Yeah, I think it's hard to answer that question now. I definitely have written a ton, you know, like a lot of us, had a lot of time on my hands. Right. I've written a ton, particularly in early 2020. So now it's like sorting through those songs and trying to figure out what blends and what will work well together. So there will be another record coming out, I think, late this year. But it's hard to say now if those songs really were just like a moment in time. Kind of like I was saying earlier, where they do sound darker, they do sound more intimate, they do more pain than my last record. So is it just a moment in time and kind of this sort of time, or is it really the first few chapters of like this next sound of Under Moonlight? I don't know yet. I think it's still an open question, and I'll probably have a lot more, I think I'll have even more context on what happened to me last year in like a year from now. I'll probably have just better perspective on it all.
So with the next, that being said, with the next plans for, you know, material, you said later this year, since these two new tracks kind of seem like a more one-off, is the plan to do like a full length? Because that would be your first for Under Moonlight, right? It wouldn't be another EP, or is an EP kind of the thought there?
I think it's going to be a full length. I'm pretty sure there will be, I want it to be. I mean, there's certainly just so much that I've written. I mean, God, the number of songs have not yet seen the light of day over the last, that I've written over the last whatever year or so. So I hope so, and I think the answer is generally yes. And even beyond that, like, I'm excited about the record, but I'm also just really excited about, again, like building out this world of Under Moonlight and like the live experiences and what that looks like, and short film ideas and merch ideas, and just a million ways that I think I can kind of create the feeling of Under Moonlight even beyond the songs. Because there's like, I think the songs, they do kind of, hopefully, ideally, the hope is that they fill you with a certain level of joy and peace and maybe a little bit of magic. And so my thinking is like, how I have these songs, so, and hopefully we'll have a record in short order. How do I create the feelings that I get from these songs in other ways? It's kind of like this conversation is kind of going full circle, where it's like, I think of myself as a musician, but also just like a person who loves to create a variety of beautiful things. So like, how do I take the energy and the feeling of these songs and translate that into just a really unique live experience or a short film or whatever it is? And so, to answer your question in a very, very long way, I think that there will be a record, but I also think there will just be a lot in support of that record that hopefully will give you the same sorts of feelings that you have when you listen to the songs.
And to kind of wrap things up again, coming full circle, you're talking about, the live shows that they're hoping to put together and like what those look like and what those sound like. Like, is there, can you give any more specifics on kind of like what is the aesthetic of Under Moonlight? Any thoughts, or is it still kind of too vague at this point in time?
No, I think that's a great question, man, and I appreciate it. I think Under Moonlight is, there's like sort of certain values that I have in my head, and I think above all else, it's really like this mixture of like wonder and magic. And so I think about those values a lot. I think about, okay, what sorts of spaces and experiences can we build that create those sorts of feelings in people? I think the big thing for me is that I'm flirting with this idea of not really using music venues, of basically doing shows only in environments that I think are really beautiful and just inspiring. Because I like music venues, but I think that there's more interesting locations that you can put our songs into that really do just create this sort of world and this universe and this energy around it, and they just like amplify the songs tenfold. It's kind of like, I'm sure, do you know So Far concerts? Yeah, so that's kind of the premise behind So Far, and I'm thinking of taking something similar for Under Moonlight. Please don't sue me, So Far. But basically I'm just like thinking a lot about location and how do we use space to amplify the song so that it really does feel like, in many ways, you're kind of living the songs, like the songs are all around you, as opposed to just being in a music venue that, not that I don't love venues, they're great, but they don't necessarily always capture the vibe that you want for any given song or any given show. So I think that is the aesthetic, but there's probably much more to come.